final week now, probably the most important point for the consumer is eating quality and what we like to see on our plate. So somebody buys a steak in the supermarket or a butcher's shop, this is what they expect. They expect animals grazing a big field, no boundaries, you see in the background, trees, the birds singing in the air, and this is what they expect from their meat. And this is what the United Kingdom has been very successful at doing, portraying their product. We're not an island that are cutting rainforests down to grow soya to feed beef, and we're majority a grazing nation. Our beef is grazing, whether it be in the lowlands here or the hills somewhere else in the UK, and they're contributing by eating grass to produce more grass to sucrose carbon, which we talked about last week. So it's very important that these animals are here. Consumer perception is very, very important to me as a beef farmer. We want somebody to eat a piece of our beef and come back week after week. I'm told this morning that if somebody gets a bad eating experience, it's 12 weeks before they revisit that piece of product again. So we're very, very conscious of here. Another aspect we're doing that, we're adding in our genetics, we're looking for animals with a bit of intermuscular fat to enhance the flavour. Our meat plants would lead us to believe that they can do all the things that they need to do to make the beef taste right, but I still think they need a bit of help from nature. So we're actually actively adding a wee bit of intermuscular fat into our breeding program here. So when we actually do get paid for taste, as they do in some parts of New Zealand, we will be there to get paid for it. Again, it comes down to the pounds, shillings and pence. But ideally, this is what we want to sell our beef on. Not the guys that I showed you in the house, because they're coming from a dairy herd as calves. You know, and the dairy industry does have that stigma about calves at birth. These calves suckle their mothers for 8-9 months and then are weaned. As you can probably see, some of them have got weaning flaps in their noses, so they're gradually not getting a wee drink from mummy, and they eventually don't need her at all. In the past, why do we have a few different breeds? And it's because we have 3 or 4 different contracts and market specs. Some of our Aberdeen Angus go to Tesco, and Tesco will require these cattle to be a certain age, a certain weight, eating a certain type of food, and be grazed for as long as possible and finished on straw. So therefore, of course, we're entitled to a bit of a bonus. Other animals, other specs, certain weight limits for bulls, certain fat conformations. It's all very, very different, and depending where you would go with these animals. However, I much stress, just don't head down this route unless you've got a contract signed and sealed before you start, because you can be left high and dry. So yeah, it's very important to have different aspects. The consumer trend at present is for Aberdeen Angus, and that is the brand specific that everybody knows about. And actually, before we ventured into Aberdeen Angus, I stopped the school bus in Kirkcudbright one day, as a local village, and asked the first person off the bus, what's the best beef? What's the best beef to have? And they said Aberdeen Angus, because it's the best beef in the world. And you know, to me that was enough. As a young school child knew Aberdeen Angus, and they had no connections to farming. There's been a lot of talk and banter about grading, manual grading, virtual grading, and I suppose we in Northern Ireland have been using the computer grading, or the on-screen grading, for quite a while here, and I suppose it should probably be updated with new imaging cameras and digital cameras and better views of things. I suppose that the lights and the bulbs in these machines will dull over years to come, and maybe we should be looking at an updated version of the grading system. Are we getting enough value back from the grade? You know, these machines can virtually tell you meat to bone ratio. Am I getting paid enough for my E-grade limousine bulls versus an R-grade Angus? Because there'll be a whole lot more meat in my E-grade limousine, finer bones. So there's lots of things that the industry should be looking at. I would like to see them be very proactive and look at this. Gone are the days when you give the grader 3 or 4 steaks at the end of the week because he made the meat plant allegedly a lot of money that week. All in all, the grading is quite good. And then when we look at fat colour, does animals fed with maize have a yellower fat versus grass-fed animals which is a whiter fat, and does that affect the fatness score? So there's lots of questions that I could ask, and I'd like industry to answer them to me. But this is all about, we all have to learn together. Another thing that improves eating quality is an animal having no stress. Generally what happens here, we are an hour and a half from our abattoir. Generally the lorry comes in here very early in the morning, the animals go on to a lorry and they go straight down to the plant and they go straight up the line. Now I'm led to believe that a plant examined on how quiet it is. We want to do everything very quietly here, and the place definitely that my animals go to is very, very quiet, so there's no stress, so therefore the meat should be better. Take the exact opposite. I live in Australia and I'm sending cattle to Indonesia. The animals are shipped onto a boat. They're boated to Malaysia or Indonesia, where they're brutally slaughtered, and surely that meat can't be the same. Just likewise, the Australians send sheep to the Middle East on a boat, and many of them die on their way there. You know, do the public want meat from a country? The animals have to travel that distance. Brazil is the same. You know, they could be travelling days and days and days in a lorry to get to the abattoir. Okay, the UK, maximum 2 or 3 hours. Maximum Northern Ireland's 2 hours. They would have to travel anywhere. So again, that's another plus for eating quality. That's another plus for the consumer for food miles. Another reason why food security is so important, and another reason why we are looking after our environment. We're not exporting that environment responsibility to somebody else, somewhere else in the world, and closing our eyes to it. We can all claim to be saving the planet by not eating meat from Britain, but you know, your soya, your almonds, all those products come from a lot further afield than just down the road. It's been a pleasure having you on farm, but not actually having you here. We hope you all have found something to take out of it. It's a bad day when some of us don't learn something, and I'm sure James has found the same. It's been delightful working with you all, and thank you very much.